Welcome back. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this cute cat block. Thanks to one of our subscribers, Alicia, she sent me this image of a quilt. And she's like, how did they do that? She was trying to figure out how to dissect this block, these blocks, which I actually blew up into a single cat. How did they do that? Because as I looked at it, there are very, very few seams. So she was trying to figure this out. Well, Alicia, this video is for you. I now have a cat block for you. Ta-da! Yup, there's your cat block. Now, with that said, I had put, I have put borders on this one. I have put side borders on, but that gives the block, that makes the block square. So with this pattern, it's gonna end up with, a little bit unusual size. It's gonna be a 12.5-inch finished block if you put the edges on. But if you wanna do what Alicia's pattern was, it has no sides. This is a rectangular block, and that will work just fine too. So I'm gonna show you how to do this. And this is really, I'll admit, it took me a while to dissect it, figure out the best approach and the proportions to get what I thought looked good from a perspective of the ear sizes and the, oops, over here, the body as far as where the body goes back. So stay tuned and I'm gonna show you how to do this because it's pretty simple and it'll make a really fast quilt because the blocks are big. This block is super easy. Here's what you need. You need a 6 by 2.5-inch size fabric of your background. So let's show you your background fabric first. A 6 by 2.5-inch rectangle for your ears, and you need a 4 by 9-inch piece for your side. Now, if you want to make your block square, you'll need two 2¼ by 13-inch strips to put on your sides. Then for your cat, you need two 2.5-inch blocks for your cat ears, a 6 by 11-inch piece for the cat body, face, front. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the tail or the body, but either way, you need 6 by 11-inch cut here and a 4 by 8.5-inch cut here. Now, this piece, I'm having you cut it a tad longer than you need, and then we're gonna trim it up. I just found that to be the simplest way to do it. And you're not gonna waste a lot of fabric, so don't worry about that. So that is what we need for fabric, okay? So I've got my fabric cut out, so let's do our ears first. Ears first is the simplest thing. And by the way, when working with black fabric, not that your cats need to be black. You can go, that's a cool thing about this. You can go with a very, very scrappy quilt with different backgrounds, different cats, have fun with it. But I happen to have some black fabric. The black fabric you think is the same on both sides, but it's not. It has a slightly different sheen to it. And so I discovered when working with black fabric and I'm like, which side is what? I make sure I pin the front of the fabric. That way I don't end up with pieces that you go, oh, those don't quite match. So be aware of that. So let's take our 2.5-inch squares, which I've got, and we're going to flip them wrong side down. And I'm gonna grab I like my Soline marking pen for this. It's white. It's also got pink in there, and all we're gonna do is we're going to draw a diagonal line on the back of our 2.5-inch cat fabric so that we can make our cat ears. Okay, now that we've got those marked, then you take your background fabric, your 6 by 2.5-inch piece, and you're going to put your cat fabric squares on the edges, the two ends. Now, whoopsie, I'm moving things all over the place. And I'm going to pin these anyway, so it really won't matter. But make sure your angles go into the middle. Because if you don't, you're going to be very unhappy because you might end up with weird, especially if you do one like that and the other. So make sure your fabric is set, your squares are on there, and then you're going to go to the sewing machine and you're going to sew on the line that you just drew. So you're going to sew on the line. Okay? Do that, and we're going to come back and we'll show you how we got cat ears. Okay, I have sewed on those seams. Now, here's a little trick I've learned, because basically here's what you're going to do. You're going to fold this over and press it. I'm going to just finger press it. And you want these edges to line up because you're going to cut away this on the back side. Every once in a while I've done it and I've folded it over and the top triangle hasn't quite gone over and covered up, so it's not a square. So what I found is that when I stitch on the line, I actually stitch a tad on the inside of the line, on the side that I'm going to cut away. Because you have to remember, your thread and folding the seam over does have a weight to it. So if you sew directly on the line sometimes, well, oh yeah, and the line you drew has a weight to it also. It has a thickness to it. Therefore, when you fold, sometimes that weight causes you to be a little off. So that's just a little trick that I do, because in this regards, trying to find my little roller, in this regards, you know, as long as your corners match up here, you're good. So then what we do is I cut away, make sure you cut away the right side. Do not cut in the big section. You'll be very, very unhappy with yourself. So we're gonna trim away the corners. Here we go. More for my leader pile. And there we go, look at there. I'm gonna just finger press. There we go. We have cat ears. Yep, okay. Okay, you're gonna take those to your iron and you're going to press those so they're nice and firm. Then you're going to grab your big piece of cat fabric, black fabric, that is 6 by 11. And there's my marker for the top of my fabric. And then you're gonna put your cat ears on the top of your big piece. It's really that simple. It'll be pretty obvious. We're gonna pin those. And then we've got your cat body with the ears on. One thing I should have made sure to mention is that when you put your ears on the large body of the cat, make sure you're putting this ear piece where the cat pieces are towards the other cat pieces. Because otherwise, if you put that at the top, you're gonna be very unhappy. Okay, there we go. We have our cat body with ears. Now, we're gonna set that aside, and now we're gonna work on the next piece. And this is this piece here. So basically we work this piece first, and then we're gonna work this piece. So now this one, we've got our 4 by 9 background fabric and a 4 by 8.5 inch black fabric. Okay, so this is what you're gonna do is take your background and turn it on the side. And then take your cat fabric, and I'm gonna move my pin down there so it's out of the way, and you're gonna put it on top of it this way. Yep, basically we're going to create a diagonal seam just like we do with a binding. Now, you could do this sometimes. Okay, so here's a few different ways to do this is, because the key thing is you want to know, of course, how do I keep losing pens? I just do. You want to know right here where that corner is, where that is, because that's where you're going to want to mark your line. So Now that I did that, here's my corner where it's going to be right here. So if I put this back on here, I want to sew from there to that corner. So I marked it by doing it that way, and then I get my ruler out and I actually draw my line. I've got my little mark there, and I go up to the corner and I make a line, okay? And then we come back. This fabric caught me the other day and I went, oh, I put my ears on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so now we're gonna line this up so it's nice and neat in this corner, nice and neat there, and we're gonna pin it. Yep, and then you're gonna go to the sewing machine and you're gonna sew on the line. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna sew on the line and then this is gonna flip over and flip down, and you're gonna have that angled body. Make sure, I'm double checking that I've got this right. Yes, you want this away from it. So you might wanna do what I do sometimes and go, okay, fold it like that, look at it and go, okay, yes, I'm gonna have my angle on my black the correct way. Because it would be a real bummer if you did this and then you went, oh, it's going the wrong way. Okay, so I got my corners marked, I'm double checking everything, and now I'm gonna go and sew this. Now, this is the part that we're going to cut away. So I'm gonna sew on the line, but very close to that side, the cutaway side. And then we're ready to start putting pieces together, the bigger pieces together. So we sewed our line, and then you fold it over, and you press it, and if all went well, your edges should be pretty doggone even. We got a little blip there. Close enough, okay? We have that, and then we're going to trim away the portion that we don't need because we don't want all of this bulk in our quilt. There's no need for that. Okay, now we have our second piece. And then we're going to just combine it with our first piece. Now, as you can see here, I've got mine cut. I probably could have cut it. How much extra do I have down there? I've got a whole, wow, I've got a whole inch down there. So I probably could have cut this 8 inches and trimmed it. So, but this gives you a little wiggle room to decide if, you know, maybe you'll feel better if that angle is closer up here. So then you can do a little shifting and place it closer up, or just keep the top of your background and your ears and trim off the bottom. And so I'm pretty partial to kind of where I have it. And so why don't you play with this with your first block and get a sense of how much you need. And so in this case, I'm trimming off an inch, which is quite a bit when you talk about doing this for a whole quilt. So I could probably cut this down and have this strip be 4 by, I still prefer trimming and squaring up. So I would cut mine 4 by 7 1/4. So because right now this if I took off that whole inch, this piece would have been 4 by 7 1/2. So wait a minute, I just did the math wrong. Yes, I would cut this 4 by 7 3/4. So I would cut this 4 by 7 3/4, and then I'd be squaring it up and trimming off 1/4 of an inch, because right now I have an extra inch. So with that said, I'm still partial to where I've got my angle, so I am going to match my tops. And actually I prefer having this little pesky thing here at the top that I start sewing on so I can see it. So I'm gonna just even everything up, and it's so much fun matching up black on black, let me tell you. So you just get your edges together, pin those, and then sew it, and then we're gonna just trim up the bottom. Okay, there we have it. There is my cat. And I'm gonna trim the bottom of this up quickly. And just make sure I keep it square there, and square here, square there, so that I'm keeping my block square. There we go. Now we have our cat. Now this cat is like Alicia's original block. Now, her pattern looked like it was not pieced in the ears, and they must have done set-in seams of sort. Sorry, ain't happening. I'm not dealing with that. So this is the simplest way to get your cat ears. And then you've got basically two big pieces, couple big pieces of fabric, and you got a cat. It is that simple. Now, you could leave it like this and create a whole set of quilt blocks, putting them together. So in Alicia's pattern, as you can see here, they were putting them, you know, back to back, or face to face, I should say. And then, you know, kind of alternating. And then, oh, you can see up here, then the other ones are butt to butt. So that's kind of cool. Otherwise, as I did with my other block, which I'm not going to walk you through because I think you can handle putting on 2, 2.5, 2.25 inch squares. Sorry, I'm looking at my measurements and making sure I'm telling you right. 2.25 by 13 if you want to put on the edges. But what I noticed here is, okay, so I've got this one. Now this is a square block. It is currently 13-inch square. This one is 13 by 9? 13 by 9.5. But look what happens. All of a sudden I thought, I wonder if these would make a placemat. There we go. Look at there. If you left one block without a side edging, you could butt it up another one that had the side, and then you've only got one strip in between them. Otherwise, you'd end up with basically 2 strips in between. So what I would recommend you maybe do is play with making a bunch of these first. Then figuring out, okay, I have a whole bunch of these. Do I want to put them together without the sashing or with sashing? Oofda, saying that accurately. Because once you put them together, you could decide that, oh, yep, I want sashing between the blocks and I don't want double. Because personally, I really like this. It looks very cool. I could put one more sashing on this side or take the sashing, let me move this over a little bit more for you. We've got the sashing over here on this piece. I could take that sashing off, have just sashing in between, and then put a border all the way around it, and I'd have a pretty cool placemat. That'd be a pretty cool placemat for those that have cats. I have a couple family members that have cats. So there you have it. Alicia, thank you so much for asking, how did they do that? So that I could figure this out for you and get a video going, because I'm guessing other people will find this pretty cool too. So there we have it. Take care and have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single video I published, hit the subscribe button below and then hit the bell icon. And that way you will be notified whenever I publish a new video. But you can also find me over on Facebook. Facebook.com/Wendy, the initial J, Haney. Or I have a Facebook group for those of you that love quilting, needlework, books, wine, and wellness. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/lifefulfilled. The name of the group is Life Fulfilled - Quilting, Needlework, Books, Wine, and Wellness. You can also find me over on my website, wendyjhaney.com. I will be doing more blogging over there eventually. As I get more of my videos done, I'll be blogging about those. But also, maybe you see some things that I'm making here and you're going, ooh, wow, I just don't want to make that myself. Well, a lot of those products will end up over there on the website that you can purchase for your friends and family. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you watching.